Your Olympia win, the PNBA Natural Olympia. You won the open class. Congratulations on that again. And tell us about, or the listeners who may not know, your experience at the Olympia and what made you want to compete in the Olympia again, because this obviously isn't your first time. Yeah, dive into that whole experience. What was that like?
I hadn't competed in just around 6 years. I have been competing with the INBA, PNBA since 1993. I didn't turn pro until probably 2006. And then I waited to do my first pro show in about 2009, which was a natural Olympia on the Gold Coast. I had won an amateur Olympia that was held here in Australia back in 2006 in Western Australia to qualify as a pro. But I did my first one in 2009 here in Australia on the Gold Coast in Queensland, Australia. And I ended up getting second in my first natural Olympia to Kiyoshi Moody. It was sort of in his period when he's had his bit of his reign. I kept placing second and third. And then finally, after probably 7 attempts in 2015, they split the class and I won the tall class. But I lost the overall to Philip Ricardo in 2015. So I came back in 2016 and they didn't split the class and I won the natural Olympia in 2016. In 2017, I returned to defend it, but just didn't bring the package. So I ended up placing third. And I was also put in position of running the INBA as the Australian president in Australia as of 2017. So sort of I was juggling a business as a trainer, a coach, running a bodybuilding organization in Australia, and then trying to compete professionally at that level. So I just didn't work out how to juggle all of those things and bring out the best in myself. So I took a step back from competing, focused on running the INBA and my business as a trainer and a coach. And then just recently, I started up with a business partner, a supplement brand called Duos Dynamis here in Australia. So we started promoting that, and then it was suggested, well, let's get into shape for a photo shoot to promote the brand. And I just turned 50. I thought, well, this would be a great opportunity to get into shape for a photo shoot. As I was pushing harder into the photo shoot, I just noticed that the body was responding really well. I was more conditioned. I had just a more mature approach to my training, my nutrition. I just found that kid in the candy store mindset to want to, go again. So the body was looking good and it just got closer and closer. Then it was sort of suggested, you could probably compete. So I entered the World Cup 1 week out from the Natural Olympia. And it just so happened like I was entering and I just put myself into the open class and it didn't worry about doing the Masters, the Grand Masters. I just went in the open class and it worked well. I won that one. I honed some things from that show and then the next week did the Natural Olympia and won it again. So I was really humbled to win that. But regardless, getting ready for a photo shoot, I put a lot of work in.
For sure, because you don't just step on the Olympia stage and take it. So
No.
like you mentioned, you're 50 now. You just turned 50. Was it this year?
This year, yes.
This year. I mean, that's a big milestone, right? And that makes sense as far as your competition history, competing since the 90s. So we're talking about some serious longevity there, right? How many years did it take you to win your first Olympia? Like, let's
That's
calculate
about 7 to 10. Well, I won an amateur Olympia the first go. My first amateur win at the Olympia when I first was good enough to do it. I'd been competing since my first show was 1989 and I was green. I was like a kid and I was like in high school doing my first competition. And that was like on a dare. I was hanging out at a friend's place one weekend and he said, hey, come and visit, and stay at my place. And by the way, I think you should do a bodybuilding show.
Right.
That was what we were at versus like a few years later, sort of reading up on how to diet and train and so forth. And even when that was in place, I still didn't really know what I was doing. So really, I sort of took it more seriously in around 1991, 92 to sort of start competing and placing to actually making it to a Natural Olympia and winning my tour class in 2006. So if you look at that, it's from 92 to 2006 before I was going to be good enough to win at that level. And then I still took off time from 2006 to 2009 from, major competition to get good enough to be at that level as well. From winning the amateur, it took me 7 attempts to win the natural professional Olympia in the PNBA. I kept going back. So 7 attempts. I kept getting second, third. I kept going back and forward. And then, it took 7 attempts. So 7 attempts means 7 years.
You're constantly tweaking the process, I'm sure, along the way. Like, how much did you tweak the nutrition side of things or the training side of things as you were gunning for that first place win? Was there any of that going on, or was it more so just, hey, it's not my time yet, I'm going to keep everything the exact same and eventually I think I can do this?
There was definitely some tweaking. I mean, to be honest with you, I get it right, and then what would happen is